If I were to ask an everyday individual how many scenes there are in Star Wars Episode 5, The Empire Strikes Back, they would more than likely respond 6. The invasion on Hoth, Luke finding Yoda on Dagobah, the chase through the asteroid field, Luke training on Dagobah, Han and Leia being captured on Bespin, and then the showdown on Bespin. Maybe one more to wrap up things at the end. It's easy to perceive the swapping of location or a dramatic beat in the story as a change of scene. And yes, every movie does have scenes. But if we were to strip away the more obvious indications of scene change and ask an everyday person to break down the scenes of a film like 12 Angry Men, they would probably be pretty lost. In this video, I'm going to tear down the mystery of scene changes to show you exactly where a scene progresses to the next in well-written films. This isn't as hard as you would think. To do this, I'll be examining The Banshees of Inisherin, which as of recording has just been released into cinemas. After that, I'll return to The Empire Strikes Back to break down each scene change in the film as an easily accessible example of what I'm talking about. Let's get started. In my video on how to write a scene, I provide 5 main guidelines for what to look for in a scene. These climaxed in the 5th and most important question: how does the scene change the overall story? This is what we're going to focus on. Each scene must turn the overall story in some way. Now, if you're a newcomer into screenwriting, it may sound vague just to say focus on turning the story. So in order to provide a rock-solid foundation on which to base the changing of your story, we will instill what we call values into your story. These are clear metrics by which to turn the story. Before moving forward, it's a prerequisite that you need to understand conflict and storytelling. To learn about how that works or brush up on the concept, check out my videos on conflict here. So, we establish our values based upon the conflict at hand. Let's examine the conflict of the Banshees of Inisherin. On one side, we have Colin Farrell's character, who is satisfied ignoring the warfare on the horizon across the bay. He is content joining his friend at the pub every day at 2 p.m. and that being all there is. On the other side, Brendan Gleeson's character decides he can't ignore the significance of the war nearby anymore. He can't continue living mindlessly only to be forgotten. He ends their friendship abruptly because he wants to live a life of higher meaning and not associate with lower individuals. So values. Values can be internal or external. They are states that can flip from negative to positive. On an external level, this could be being in the pub or not, raining or not, a character being dead or alive. Accomplishing goals can switch from positive to negative. Gaining a valuable piece of knowledge can switch from negative to positive. On an internal level, it can be a change of feeling, a change of belief, a new idea based upon new information gained, etc. In this film, the very first value change we see in the film is their lifelong friendship flipping from positive to negative. Suddenly, they just aren't friends anymore. Keep in mind this doesn't have to be as sudden as flipping a switch in your own story, but this film is a really great starter lesson in value changes just because it is very sudden for comedy's sake, so it's very clear. Throughout the course of the film, other values such as whether or not Colin Farrell thinks he is simple or not, Brendan Gleeson cutting off his fingers, Farrell's sister leaving/staying, etc. are all changed at some point. All of these values are in service of exploring the conflict at hand. In my structure videos, I talk about how these changes in value throughout your story escalate. What I mean by that is these little moments, these beats, build up until a value changes, thus making a scene. These scenes tie together into a sequence where a big change that you can't come back from is made. These sequences stack into acts. Like this, we keep stacking until we get to the ultimate turn in the story, the resolution, where you side with one of the arguments of the film. One side of the philosophical conflict becomes permanently negative while the other permanently positive. Before thinking on such a large scale though, master the art of writing individual scenes. The Banshees of Inisherin is really great at building scenes from normal conversations that at first feel insignificant but then escalate into the characters making a statement right at the end of the scene that changes the value. Your scene ends in value change. Try to avoid putting yourself into a mental block thinking that if you change locations, that automatically means you change a scene. Oftentimes, the two go together. But there can be exceptions, so just be aware about what you want to happen in the story and then execute on that. If necessary, there can be little changes in scenes as long as you understand what change you're building up to. I highly recommend The Banshees of Inisherin. It's my favorite movie of the year so far. Absolutely brilliant. Let's move on to look at the scene division in The Empire Strikes Back. I said the average person might guess there to be 6 scenes in The Empire Strikes Back, but there are actually 50. An average scene count is between 40 and 60 for most movies, but just know that a movie should always be allowed to have as many scenes as necessary to complete its story. Let me show you each of the turns in the story that causes a scene change. But first, let's establish the conflict. Internal. Luke wants to live up to his father and be good, but he is scared of the darkness growing inside of himself. External. The Empire pins down the location of the rebels and pursues them in order to vanquish them. Philosophical. It's about the reality that evil is not something which exists externally and separately from good, but alongside it. Each of our progressing changes will contribute to the exploration and furtherment of this conflict. Take time to study this document as you watch The Empire Strikes Back. These are the 50 official scene titles available on the Blu-ray. You'll learn that the scenes are pretty short and constantly keep change rolling. Change is the bread and butter of storytelling, so knowing how to keep values changing in your story constantly will put you on a strong path to success. Remember, the scene changes when you turn the story. Stay tuned for more screenwriting content. I'll be talking about Black Panther: Wakanda Forever this Friday. Thanks for watching the video, guys. If you enjoyed it or found it informative, leave it a thumbs up and subscribe. If you thought it could have been better though, give it a thumbs down and then leave me some constructive criticisms in the comments below. Thanks guys, I'll see you later.